There we go. Hi all, this is School for A Course in Miracles. My name is Bruce Rawles, and thank you as always to Tim and Lynn for making this forum available to all of us to share what is truly helpful. So I'm delighted to be talking about one of my favorite parts of the course this evening, which is the last section, actually before the clarification of terms in the manual for teachers, which is as for the rest. I thought to start with, I found a couple of paragraphs, lesson 122, that I think will set the tone for what we're going to talk about tonight. So if you want, you can open your workbook to lesson 122. I'm looking at the online version, so if anybody has the print version, it should be, let's see, where is that? Anybody have it handy? It's in the 200s here.
Page 217.
217, thank you, Maya. Yep, sure enough. Okay, yeah, 217, which is lesson 122 in the workbook. And I'll just read the first couple of paragraphs. And if you want, we can have this as a meditation. And if you want to just sit back, close your eyes, relax, and kind of let this soak in. And we'll be quiet for a few moments after that. So lesson 122 is forgiveness offers everything I want. What could you want forgiveness cannot give? Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness, a quiet mind, a certainty of purpose, and a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and the warmth of sure protection always? Do you want a quietness that cannot be disturbed, a gentleness that can never be hurt, a deep abiding comfort, and a rest so perfect it can never be upset? All this forgiveness offers you and more. It sparkles on your eyes as you awake and gives you joy with which to meet the day. It soothes your forehead while you sleep and rests upon your eyelids so you see no dreams of fear and evil, malice, and attack. And when you wake again, it offers you another day of happiness and peace. All this forgiveness offers you and more. So if you want, we can just kind of muse on that for a few moments, and then I'll bring us back. All right. So, any immediate reflections on those two paragraphs? Sound like a pretty good sales pitch, doesn't it? Everything that we want. That's pretty good pretty good marketing. So
he's really trying to break through our defensive system, and it's we have so many chains and locks and walls around it, and yeah, he's gotta show us the contrast, doesn't he?
Yep. As you were saying that, if anybody remembers the old Get Smart show where he goes down an elevator and then all these doors open and close behind him, and and he walks through this subterranean corridor. I think that's sort of like, all the different seeming barriers that we think we go through to the peace and the certainty and the quietness and the gentleness and the comfort and the rest so perfect it can never be upset. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Chris.
The only word that Jesus left off there on the title is forgiveness offers everything I want now. A couple of but I forgive him for that. But a couple of classes ago, Tim was talking about, because we are really just dealing with now, forgiveness now, talking about it right in the present this day. And Tim held up his CD from Ken. It was entitled Forgiveness Now. And I'm of course writing it. I'm going to order that right away. I'm going to get that. And I'd already gotten from the retreat a bunch of them, but I knew I didn't have that one. But I said, what the heck, I'm going to look through anyway. And on the cover, it had something about dream something. And that was just a piece of paper that was in the way. And I pushed that out of the way and I have it. I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I have forgiveness now. And was in the car for 100 miles out, 100 miles back today. And I said, oh, good, I'm going to get to hear most of that. And it was, I'm going to tie this in somehow to these paragraphs, because it really was, Ken talked about, don't think about your path as your life, your past life, or where you're going in the next month or so. How about right now at 8 o'clock? You're going to make a choice between the Holy Spirit and the ego right now. And then he'd talk for a minute. Now at 8:06, you're going to make this choice now. But it turned out being like, that is, yeah. And when I read, sometimes I'm reading and it's I'm not in the now at all. I'm just reading it because there's 8 pages and I got to get through all that, trying to get it done. Or, if that's his commentary or just a long lesson. But really, now you can do it. He kept saying, don't think about it as your path that you've been on all your life or all your many lives. Right this instant, you're doing all this stuff right now. And you kept coming back to choose once again. You're deciding now to listen to the ego, or now to take the Holy Spirit's hand or Jesus's hand, or he'd say, or anybody's hand that you see as your guide, But for most of us, if not all of us, that really would be Jesus, no matter what our background is. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's always the present moment, isn't it? I mean, the past and the future are just mental constructs that we are very fond of entertaining. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that's all. The only thing we have, the only part of time we have access to, isn't it? I mean, we seem to pull in things from past and future, but we're always bringing them into the present. Yeah.
And it seems like that's what I want to escape a lot of times, even doing the course. If my mind's wandering, it's just like, I don't want to think about this right now. I think he even has an answer to that. Well, then don't do it right now. You want to have an open mind when you're doing these things and reading them. Of course, he keeps talking about doing it with whatever you're doing, do it with the Holy Spirit, a course or an activity or whatever.
Which ties in perfectly with what we're about to read. And so without further ado, thank you for the segue, Chris. Welcome, David. I'm just going to read the section 29. I'm going to read it just fairly quickly, and then we can talk about it, line by line in more detail, because there's a lot in it actually. But I thought sometimes, it's good to hear the whole song and then listen to certain passages, if you will. So anyway, so it's not very long, but I think it'll probably just take a few minutes to read it, and then we can go back and really ponder the content in a little more detail. So this is section 29 in the manual. This is sort of like the finale of the manual. After that, it's the clarification of terms. So this is sort of like the charge or the blessing or the encouragement. It's like, take this and go with it. It's sort of like it's not really graduation, because the course tells us that this is a beginning, not an ending. But it really it's kind of is a summary in a lot of ways of what the course is all about. So I'm really grateful to be able to focus on this evening. So it's
I'm sorry, Bruce, I got to put my epilogue in here, because if you're not into the course but you're into Seinfeld, they had an episode where one of those characters came up with a solution to everybody's problem, and it was serenity now. And I think it was the crazy neighbor guy, but any problem that came to him, serenity now, and it would work. It worked up to a point till he got a problem that didn't work for. But then everybody looked at him like he was the guru. He knew always what to say. Did you see that one? Serenity
it's been a while, but I do remember that episode.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
Now I've used up all my airtime for the night. So
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of where the course is leading to us, is to an eternal, continuous now of serenity and true peace. A tranquil mind is not a little gift, it tells us, right? So yeah, I'll just read this in a relatively moderate pace, but then we can go back and really ponder each of the sections here. So this is section 29 of the manual, as for the rest. And I noticed that in Tim's email, he used the wordplay with rest, the double meaning of rest. So I was thinking, the obvious one is as for the remainder of the course, but as for the rest, as in rest and relaxation, and how do we feel when we feel rested? Well, there's a comfort, there's a peace, an ease, a lot of different words come in. But anyway, so as for the rest, this manual is not intended to answer all questions that both teacher and pupil may raise. In fact, it covers only a few of the more obvious ones in terms of a brief summary of some of the major concepts in the text and workbook. It is not a substitute for either, but merely a supplement. While it is called a manual for teachers, it must be remembered that only time divides teacher and pupil, so that the difference is temporary by definition. In some cases, it may be helpful for the pupil to read the manual first. Others might do better to begin with the workbook. Still, others may need to start at the more abstract level of the text. Which is for which? Who would profit more from prayers alone? Who needs but a smile, being as yet unready for more? No one should attempt to answer these questions alone. Surely no teacher of God has come this far without realizing that. The curriculum is highly individualized, and all aspects are under the Holy Spirit's particular care and guidance. Ask and he will answer. The responsibility is his, and he alone is fit to assume it. To do so is his function. To refer the questions to him is yours. Would you want to be responsible for decisions about which you understand so little? Be glad you have a teacher who cannot make a mistake. His answers are always right. Would you say that of yours? Very big grin there. And this is probably one of my favorite paragraphs in the whole book, especially right at the end of the paragraph. There is another advantage, and a very important one, in referring decisions to the Holy Spirit with increasing frequency. Perhaps you have not thought of this aspect, but its centrality is obvious. To follow the Holy Spirit's guidance is to let yourself be absolved of guilt. It is the essence of the atonement. It is the core of the curriculum. The imagined usurping of functions not your own is the basis of fear. The whole world you see reflects the illusion that you have done so, making fear inevitable. To return the function to the one to whom it belongs is thus the escape from fear. And it is this that lets the memory of love return to you. Do not then think that following the Holy Spirit's guidance is necessary. merely because of your own inadequacies. It is the way out of hell for you. Well, I'll pause there just for a moment in case there's any comments. I mean, I was going to just read straight through, but I think there's plenty in those first 3 paragraphs to talk about. Anyone have any comments or questions so far? Chris?
Yeah, just a brief one in that. Definitely for me, when I did this, and when I still do it, I'm always bringing up what I think are my little inadequacies, whatever they might be. Low self-esteem and this or that, or sloppy apartment. Just little things about myself or my own personal environment. And I mean, that's fine. But then when don't think of it's not just that. Not that your little self's going to feel better, but it's the way out of hell for you, which just means the world is hell. And, when you come from a position that I have, really, with almost all privileges that anybody could have in the world, but still with the guilty mind, we're all stuck with that. It's just a real powerful statement. It is the way out of hell for you and for all of us.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the way out of hell is, you touched on it really, really nicely, and it's the idea that we identify with the self that we made, including the bodies and the personalities. And that's, I oftentimes, when I walk up to the bathroom mirror and in my saner moments, like, am I going to limit my identity to this? I mean, it's pretty pathetic, it's, and how could any of us not have that, realization when we realize how absurd it is to limit the spirit that on some level we know is our real identity to something that is just like a little blip on the cosmic radar. And we're entitled to much more than that. In fact, the Course tells us that we're entitled to everything, and we've settled for nothing. And the nothing, of course, is equating ourselves not only with the body, but with the separate self. That's the fabricator and the magician that made up the separate self. Yeah. Marissa, and then Maya.
What came to mind for me with that last sentence is that he's dedicating that last sentence to the bliss ninny in us, who needs to be told that we're miserable, who needs to be reminded that this is not just to make you feel good because a problem is solved of an instant's duration, that it's the way out of hell. And that's pretty powerful, but sometimes we overlook that and go to the next sentence, and that's the fear.
Yeah. Moment to moment, just being mindful and just seeing how, we're selling ourselves so short when we identify with the specific issues du jour and kind of forget to ask for the help. Yeah, Maya?
Yeah, I wanted to point out a corollary to the statement that that we're not sinful. In Ken's commentary on chapter 25, which is what I'm reading right now and listening to this week, he says that sinfulness and guilt are the reason, that's what the ego's existence depends upon. And so we're really challenging the ego mind as we acknowledge and affirm and state that we are innocent, that we're sinless. This is a major threat to the ego, and it's something that I didn't realize before. And I think it's sort of like the ego could say, not sinful, them's fighting words. But just to point that out.
Yeah, that's hugely important, isn't it? Yeah, there's just the willingness to look at, from the Holy Spirit's perspective, at the nothingness, which is the neutrality the ineffectuality of the ego mind to change truth. You know, in other words, yeah, everything that we made up has had no impact on our real being. Even though we don't really have much of a clue of what that is, there's a part of our mind that knows that that is completely intact and hasn't been damaged by any of our dreams. And yeah, very helpful. Anyone else on those first 3 paragraphs? I mean, I could back up a little. Did you have something, David? You're muted if you do.
Marissa had her hand up.
Oh, and yeah. David, did you, I'll get to you, Marissa. Were you trying to say something, David? You're on mute. Yeah, we'll come back. Okay,
Well, I'm
Marissa?
guessing he can't hear us either.
Maybe not, maybe not. So
Can you
Marissa,
hear us, David? I don't think so.
if you can hear us, David, nod
Yeah,
your
I
head.
can hear you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now we're good. Okay,
I can hear you.
now you're unmuted. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I didn't have anything to say.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
was just trying to get on.
Okay. All right. All good. Marissa?
Nothing profound.
All good.
Yeah, what Maya was saying, how big this is, you know, if we forgive our brother, we're telling them they are sinless. And so that's really threatening, because our whole upside down mechanism that's at work behind the scenes is to tell him the opposite.
Yeah. They're neutral. Everything that we made up in space-time is not only neutral and you know, forgivable, it just has had no impact whatsoever. You know, it's looking into an empty theater and seeing that, you know, the movie was over long ago. Right? Yeah. Yep. So we ended that paragraph with remembering that the Holy Spirit's guidance is necessarily more than just because of our own inadequacies. It's because we want to get out of hell. And of course, the hell is all only made up because we think it's possible to have divided perfect oneness. And that's really how the Course defines that as the insane and completely forgivable, completely correctable misunderstanding that perfect oneness has been trashed by our divided mind, which didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Okay, Sally.
Hi. I wonder if anyone has an example that they can share of following the Holy Spirit's guidance in their life.
Do you have one handy? Recent or not so recent memory?
Maya.
Maya does. Okay.
Sally, this is probably going to be disappointingly simple. So get set. My guideline for when I've asked for help, and it's usually an overnight thing or longer, you know, before I have a sense of a shift, is to recheck the grievance and ask, you know, myself and Holy Spirit, how's it doing? And if I get a nothing happened and a sense of peace, then I know that something has shifted. And that's the kind of answer that I get. But just that simple.
Right. When you said checking on your grievance, I was almost picturing like little seedlings in a garden. See, how are they coming along? Are they getting enough water and fertilizer? But that's sort of like what we do with our thoughts when we're wanting to be upset and can notice this, like, yeah, I'm really tending to those little grievances and trying to make them into bigger, the Audrey 2, like in the Little Shop of Horrors, feed me.
So you're checking to see, have I really forgiven that person? Is it really, did it really happen? Is it a done deal?
Yeah, does it feel like something really happened? Exactly, Sally. And then instead of checking the weeds to see if they've grown, checking to see if they're gone, or if they're just all brown now and just collapsed and no water, no nourishment.
Thank you.
I know I've made progress.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Marissa?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer Sally's question as well. Just for me, at least lately, I know there's issues that my ego holds on to in my life, and or vices or virtues, and I realized that one pretty difficult one, I kind of let go. It didn't have the same fire to it, the same effect to it, the same juicy feeling like you got something out of the grab bag of guilt. And I realized, I thought about that a while, and I said, why is it? And it just, I think unconsciously I gave up the purpose it served, and I didn't even realize when that happened. But because it was so easy, something must have happened. So I think the purpose it served, at least for now, kind of dissolved.
Yep.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sally, for the question.
That's the why. Yeah. Thanks. Stephen?
Yeah, I like the question, Sally, but I go in the other direction. I don't have to look at the times when there's a holy instant and the times when that loving presence comes up. I'm not interested in talking about that. What Nick says, if that just happened to you, you don't have to go around telling people, and you don't have to talk about it. It just happens, and it's a wonderful thing. And when that happens, most of us just are glad for the otherworldliness of it and the wondrous part of it. Also, and I say that to get to this, what Nick said yesterday, we prefer to be miserable, and that's what we need to be looking at. He talked about Freud, and one of Freud's greatest contributions was there was a time way into his practice and his theorizing when he realized his patients didn't want to get better. They were fighting him to keep whatever they had built up, even though they were miserable. And I'm saying this also because what you're looking for is an example. Way before the course, somebody took me aside and said, "You like the pain. You want to be uncomfortable." It made me very angry, but it also helped me to look at it. And ever since I got to the course, that's what I have to look at the most. I have to be in my right mind as best I can and look at the wrong mind without judgment. I'm not trying to get to a holy instant. I'm not attempting to get those glimpses of reality. Those happen as I let go of the blocks, and the blocks mainly are the misery that we're all holding on to. We hold on to them because we want to be separate. The ego is part of the Son of God's mind that wants to be separate. We chose that, and we're choosing that in every moment as we sit here, and in every moment before and after. If you believe in other lifetimes, that's what we do. We're keeping this steady because we want to be here, and we like being miserable because we want that pleasure and we want that pain, which is the same thing in the course. Anyway, just saying. Thank you.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Javiera had her hand up.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Hi. regarding your question, I think that based on my experience, and I don't know if this helped, but 3 years ago, way before I started with the course, I had situation and experience with my daughter. And I have shared this story in different moments in class. But 3 years ago, my daughter tried to commit suicide. And it was a very deep thing and low moment for me. So, and the more over the time, month, the more I tried to fix her because I was the mom, I am the mom, her mom. So I was trying to make her happy and forget about that idea, suicidal idea. And the more I tried, the worse she was far away from me. She was closing the doors. And that made me more fearful because I had to do something. And this was months of really, I was so lost. And I didn't believe in God at that moment. I was not praying. I was very separate because for me, God and religion were together. And so, but I remember one moment that I really let the control. I was in so much pain, and I remember being crying at that moment, and I don't know why. I just offered my daughter to something, the universe, energy, God. And at that moment, it was instant, a peace that I never felt before in my life, and a certainty that she was fine, even though she could leave the physical body. It was part of the perfection because at that, and I remember the feeling of death is not real, that it doesn't exist. And I was at peace with that. I remember feeling even if my daughter leave this body or no, that is fine. That is part of the perfection. And I know that sounds weird that a mom say that, but I was at peace with that. And I am right now with that, with my 3 daughters. And I think that the question, my answer is, as soon as I leave the control, I stopped trying to fix her, to make me feel better. So I was putting my happiness, my value as a mother on her response. As soon as I let that go, that was the moment that I think that it was the holy instant. I let God in. As soon as I let the thing, my fixing, gone. So I think that is and I remember having the vivid idea and the certainty, super inner certainty that I have to mind my own business, meaning I have to work with my own healing instead of trying to heal her. And as soon as I leave that control and I start trusting on her own ability to get better in quote, because it's, but I think that was for me a big moment. So, and learning how to trust on her and on my own ability to heal myself. And I stopped that day trying to fix her. And I start a process of, okay, I have to heal myself. And 2 years later, I found the course. So, and I never hear any of my anyone talking about the course. My first class in the course last year, it was just, I mean, what I want to say with that is I didn't have any previous, nothing. I mean, the Holy Spirit just put the course in front of me, the very first class. So I don't know if that helped with your question.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Javier.
Mhm. Yeah,
Beautiful.
that's a wonderful example.
Very wise.
And it sounds like exactly what, you know, we're wanting to do with this course, is to just to notice when we've been projecting and question that projection and say, is this projection making me happy? You know, and the projections so often take the form of wanting to make things happen or not happen in the world, and all the you know, the myriad specifics, right? Whether it's family members or job situations, or our own bodies, or economies, or, you know, environments, weather, you know, the list goes on and on and on. You know, it's an endless set of, you know, ever expanding categories of things that we like or don't like in the world. But if we can just stop just long enough to say, well, gosh, is this compromising my peace by what, you know, having my peace appendage to certain outcomes? It's like, well, that's huge, isn't it? Yeah, thank you so much. Marissa.
Oh, sorry, I forgot my hand was up. That was really so nice to hear your story, Javiera, because it's also helpful for me with I have 2 boys, they're grown, but so helpful. It makes me think of purpose and the meaning of that. Again, what is it for? And how that can help us trace back to the reason why we choose these things. Yeah, just what is it for?
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing, Javier.
Yes. Would anyone like to read paragraph 5? Did we read 4? I don't think we did. Okay. Wait a minute. I think we read 4. Who'd like to read paragraph 4? Maybe someone hasn't read. Any volunteers? Lorraine?
Here again is the paradox often referred to in the Course. To say, of myself I can do nothing, is to gain all power, and yet it is but a seeming paradox. As God created you, you have all the power, all power. The image you made of yourself has none. The Holy Spirit knows the truth about you. The image you made does not. Yet despite its obvious and complete ignorance, this image assumes it knows all things because you have given that belief to it. Such is your teaching, and the teaching of the world that was made to uphold it. But the teacher who knows the truth has not forgotten it. His decisions bring benefit to all, being wholly devoid of attack and therefore incapable of arousing guilt.
Any comments or thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's like our whole culture, you know, from the time you enter school, the whole emphasis is you should know. And you should accumulate more knowledge so you know more. And then, you know, pump up the knowledge, pump up the sense of, you know, knowing something. So
Let me see the Hans and Franz skit of Saturday Night Live. They just want to pump you up. If
yeah.
anybody remembers that silly skit, I don't know, but yeah, but that's the ego's modus operandi, isn't it? It's like as long as we can have an inflated sense of understanding a situation. I mean, this one actually goes really nicely with section 10, which is, you know, how is judgment relinquished? And it's like that one's another one. It's such a favorite. It's like I have to remember that on my own, and just everyone can say this, you know, we're so completely clueless. And I think it ties in perfectly with this paragraph. You know, of myself I can do nothing. Of myself I know nothing. Of my little s self, my silly seemingly separate self, I have zero understanding of the big picture. In fact, I barely have, you know, the faintest glimmerings of you know, partial and distorted ideas about the tiniest picture that I call the world that I live in. And but that doesn't mean we don't do the things that are appropriate in the world and use, you know, the best understanding with huge air quotes around you know, of just the pragmatic stuff in the world. But it's when like in Javier's example, you know, it's like that moment of stepping back and saying, gee, what if my daughter isn't broken? What if I am, you know, what if I could stop that thought process, that thinking that I need to fix something, and we all have our dream repair technician hats on most of the time. It would seem that's how I like to think of it. Is if I can just remember when I've got that virtual hat on, and I'm going around trying to repair the dream of that I made up, and yet maybe there's another teacher who knows the truth and has not forgotten it, as that paragraph says. Maybe I could actually be more effective in the world while not taking it at the same time, not taking it quite so seriously. Yeah.
And how relaxing that is if we really get that. Like, I can just relax. And the
Exactly.
tension that, like, we don't realize we have by thinking we have to know and fix and plan and do the way we think it should be done.
Yeah, and it ties into, you know, earlier in the manual, the development of trust, all the stages we go through, and how we just need to, you know, question every value that we hold at some point. Doesn't mean we stop valuing things. It just means that if we can look at it with a little bit of curiosity and say, is this really all I want? Is this really what I want? And is my tiny little assessment of what's best for this Bruce character really the optimal way to organize my mind? Is like, well, maybe not. Yeah. Okay, who's Javier?
Yeah, again, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So having shared that experience, I many times, and I don't know how to do it with the course, I have many times thinking or asking myself, okay, when is the right moment for me to stop trying to fix things? Or when is the time that I need to trust that the Holy Spirit is gonna work? Or when is the moment for me to take action? So I really need to focus and ask myself and evaluate, okay, no, this is the time that I really need to let go and trust. Or, okay, no, this is the time that I need to take action. So for me, it's very confusing and it's not clear sometimes when do I need to do something in a daily decisions. I don't know if it's proper in English, but or when is the time for me to, okay, let go and just trust. I don't know what can you say about it?
It would almost seem like the 100% of the time is the time that's appropriate to trust, and 100% of the time is also the time to take action on the level of form where appropriate.
But inspire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
does that make sense? I mean, at least that's kind of where I'm kind of thinking that the course is suggesting, because I know at some point in one of Ken's talks, I think he says, you know, Jesus doesn't care, you know, what you do in the world, but he cares very much who you do it with. And so if that really means that I just need to do what I was going to do in the world anyway, for the most part, you know, maybe if I was going to do something really, really nuts, I would stop and think about it first.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if we can just, you know, just be normal and do what we're going to do, but just try to remember to have that counsel with the Holy Spirit in our mind, or the course's version of Jesus, you know, it you know, basically there for feedback, you know, if like, you know, what do you think about this? And then the response is always like, doesn't really matter what's happening or not happening in the world, but it really does matter if you're choosing peace.
Yeah.
About whatever specifics seem to be the big issue or the big deal, right?
Yeah.
At least like that's how I'm learning to think more and more along those lines, and just see that it's the that the space-time stuff is really neutral. But what's hugely important is which of the two thought systems? Maya?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
was going to say, Javiera, in response to your question, we never do anything alone. We're always choosing either the ego or the Holy Spirit. So perhaps the question ought to be, do I want to do it with my ego? You know what the answer is, right?
Yeah, and then the good part is every time that I ask that to myself and I recognize, oh, okay, I choose my ego, but that is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And that is really, is like the second paragraph here for me is so, so soothing. It's like he's always with us, always. And his function is to help us, to give us the answer. And there's no right or wrong for the Holy Spirit. So it doesn't matter what I do or I don't do. It's always part of the classroom. And
And
that
if you,
is so helpful for me.
and
Yeah.
if you think you're doing it with your ego, that means you're looking with Holy Spirit, because you wouldn't, it'd be
Yeah.
unconscious if you just did a default thing, you know, and just
Yeah,
acted.
you're right.
But if you're conscious, it's ego, then you're looking, you're right-mindedly looking at that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Thank you.
As you're sharing this, I was thinking again of your example, Javier, is in the moment that you recognize that your daughter wasn't broken, it would be the first step of forgiveness, withdrawing the projection, saying it's not about her. And then simultaneous to that, or sometimes almost simultaneous anyway, I'm not trying to say how it went, but it seems like it might have been, you at that point or shortly thereafter might have decided, that you weren't broken either. And in those moments, we're basically repeating lesson 5 and 34. I'm not upset for the reason I think, because it's not about my daughter or anything that's happening or not happening in the world. And it's really not about my internal world either, the one that I made up, because that has had no impact, has had no effect on the eternal self that we all are and share. And there's then the peace just it was always there, just comes flooding back in, right? Even if we push it away a few moments later, and that's okay. But we have that, even if it's just a momentary holy instant or momentary miracle, using Course's jargon, that's enough to kind of inspire us to keep going and to invite more of those moments in, isn't it? Someone had a hand raised. Okay, who'd like to read? I don't think we've read paragraph 4 yet, right? Lisa?
I think we read paragraph 4.
Yeah,
Can I
we
We
read
did. Oh, okay,
paragraph
okay.
5?
Well, maybe I just need to reread it.
That was like a deja vu moment.
That's usually how it works for me. I have to go back and reread things a lot. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
This is one of my favorite paragraphs, and it's one of the few places where I have most of it highlighted because it's so great. So anyway, I want to read it. So
Okay.
Who assumes a power that he does not possess is deceiving himself. Yet to accept the power given him by God is but to acknowledge his creator and accept his gifts. And his gifts have no limit. To ask the Holy Spirit to decide for you is simply to accept your true inheritance. Does this mean that you cannot say anything without consulting him? No, indeed. That would hardly be practical. And it is the practical with which this course is most concerned. If you've made it a habit to ask for help when and where you can be confident that wisdom will be given you when you need it. Prepare for this each morning. Remember God when you can throughout the day. Ask the Holy Spirit's help when it is feasible to do so, and thank him for his guidance at night. And your guidance will be well founded indeed. So I feel like that's like kind of in a nutshell, the course. I mean, we just keep him involved during our day, And I wanted to also address kind of what Sally was asking, and I was thinking about, for me, when I have something out in the world that's I'm obviously projecting and I'm triggered or whatever, for me, what fuels it and makes it worse is that if I judge myself for it. So for me, no judgment is so important, because judgment takes everything away from the Holy Spirit. I mean, you're saying that you can judge this and you have the knowledge to know how to solve it, and I don't. So I have to take that part. It's like fuel to the fire, when I judge it. So anyway, that's a really important thing for me, because I tend to do that.
You're the only one.
So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, because it does two things. It fuels it, it makes it worse, and then it also takes away Holy Spirit or Jesus' ability to help me. If I'm judging it, I'm not bringing it to him for help. Right?
Yeah.
So.
I would just have a comment, and then I'll get to you more. What you said, Lisa, reminds me of something that I think Ken Wapnick has said so many times in different ways in all the different programs is the way to do the course perfectly is to do it imperfectly and then forgive yourself. Is to just basically notice how much resistance we have, how much mental foot dragging we do, and avoiding those holy instants that the needless suffering of beating the dead horse of the ego's thought system and trying to make it work. Damn it, I'm going to do this on my own, and I don't, like John Wayne, I don't need any help here. It's like, but that's never worked well. When we're honest with ourselves, we need the help, not to win the lottery or to make our physical lives optimal. Although I think as a byproduct, sometimes we have a wider range of choices when we're not blinded by ego's narrow constraints, and we actually can do things that make our physical lives a little easier. But that's not the point. The point is, if I can remember that I can be peaceful more and more and more of the time by choosing the Holy Spirit's counsel and his gentle reminder that I don't have to be perturbed at a dream that I made up, and given that understanding, then I can actually within that dream be more effective. But not because I want to make the dream the big deal. It's now because I'm free to truly be kind to myself and everyone else in the dream that I'm involved with. Yeah, thanks. But like you say, Lisa, that's hugely important, isn't it? It's just to throughout the day, when you find yourself beating ego's dead horse again and saying giddy up and nothing's happening and you're still not at peace, it's like, okay, I just need to keep asking the real alternative in my mind for help. Okay, who'd like to read number 6? Luana, would you like to read one?
I do want to read it, but I don't have my books yet.
Oh, okay.
I ordered Amazon. Is there, for next time, is there a place online I can get the readings?
Yeah, if you just go to acim.org/ACIM, you can read the whole course and the 2 supplements online.
Okay, I'll do that now for next.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Who else might want to read that hasn't read or spoken? Betsy, would you like to read?
Sure, thank you. I'm on 6, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Never forget that the Holy Spirit does not depend on your words. He understands the requests of your heart and answers them. Does this mean that while attack remains attractive to you, he will respond with evil? Hardly. For God has given him the power to translate your prayers of the heart into his language. He understands that an attack is a call for help, and he responds with help accordingly. God would be cruel if he let your words replace his own. A loving father does not let his child harm himself or choose his own destruction. He may ask for injury, but his Father will protect him still. And how much more does your Father love his Son? You know, it makes me think there are many times when I try to talk to the Holy Spirit and have a request, or I'm struggling with something, and then I decide, just stop talking. You know, just stop talking because it's unnecessary. And that is a relief to me, that I don't need those words, that my intention is already very clear. That's a huge relief.
That's so helpful. Yeah, because
Thank you.
and the way you said it, I think we can all relate to. I keep talking to Holy Spirit with my demands, you know, basically. Why aren't they being met? Instead of realizing that whispered to us 24/7 is the answer, and we're so busy going blah 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 blah. I'll speak myself anyway. That if I just can remember to shut up long enough to let Holy Spirit get a word in edgewise, you know, and you know, it's there, it's waiting. Yeah, thanks. And sentence 8 there, God would be cruel if he let your words replace his own. When I was reading that, well, yesterday and again this morning, I was thinking, I actually read it the first time, God would be cruel if he let your worlds replace his own. I was saying, well, that kind of works too. The worlds that we made up of the dualistic dream of all kinds of crazy stuff that seems to beset us with problems of ever increasing complexity and variety at every turn, and you know, it's a pretty wacky world. But then if I keep remembering, it's like, well, that's my classroom, and I made it up on some level I'm not really aware of, but I don't have to analyze every last little bit. I just have to notice when I'm not at peace and ask Holy Spirit for help to see things differently. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Oh, Mercy, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just thinking of what Lisa said a few moments earlier, and that about the non-judgment. Yeah, that I was just going to say, yeah, that's a whole ball game, because that's really the third step of the 3 steps of forgiveness, after withdrawing the projection and having it, knowing where it's coming from. We don't know how to not judge, so that third step that's done by the Holy Spirit is really the non-judgment part. So we don't do it alone.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And
that's a good thing.
And we need
it's a good thing.
Complete trust on the first 2 steps too, and help with Holy Spirit. Yeah, for that way out of hell, as it points out. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Stephen, would you like to read the next paragraph? And you're muted. Oh, yep.
Paragraph 7, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool, I'm there. Remember, you are his completion and his love. Remember, your weakness is his strength. But do not read this hastily or wrongly. If his strength is in you, what you perceive as your weakness is but illusion, and he has given you the means to prove it so. Ask all things of his teacher, and all things are given you, not in the future, but immediately, now. God does not wait, for waiting implies time, and he is timeless. Forget your foolish images, your sense of frailty, and your fear of harm, your dreams of danger and selected wrongs. God knows but his Son, and as he was created, so he is. In confidence, I place you in his hands, and I give thanks for you that this is so. Wow, this is kind of he's saying the same things over and over. he does that so often. When Lisa read paragraph 5, I said, well, that's setting the goal. I'm not very good at it, but I seem to know what to do. And it comes from practice over and over and over. I would suggest to anyone, read Setting the Goal 5 times and read it with Holy Spirit, and then contemplate it or ponder it for a bit, because that's what worked for me. Also the rules for decision, same kind of thing. Also 361 through 365, those lessons, that last part. But setting the goal is what keeps coming up for today. There's one problem, one solution, separation, atonement. And how do you get to that? Well, setting the goal says, the first thing, this is any situation that comes up, just any situation. What do you want from it? Peace and truth. That's it. And then do not interfere. Do not interfere comes up, I think 6 times in the course. I invite Holy Spirit in. Well, I tried that for years and it didn't quite work. But setting the goal does, because you look at the problem at the beginning. Some situation comes up, all I want is peace and truth. And then what do I want to come for this? All I want is peace and truth. And then you let go. Most of the time, almost all of the time, all of us do this. There's a situation and we set about in fixing it. We set about in finding the way to do it. As soon as we do that, ego's got us. But if we can just look for peace and truth, every time we think of, I got to make that phone call, I got to get in the car and go over there. Oh, I hope this doesn't happen again. I mean, anything we think like that, that's always ego. But we have to stay neutral, because we have no idea how to solve that problem or that situation. I'm talking about all situations. We have, and that's what it says. That's what Setting the Goal says. We don't know how to solve any situations in this world, because that's the way it was set up. See the problem as it really is, not the way we set it up. That's what that means. We go peace and truth, and that's it, and we let it go, and then we invite, we give it to Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit knows what to do. We have no idea. So are we going to fix it, or are we going to give it to Holy Spirit? The challenge is the discernment in doing that and staying with peace and truth when all this stuff starts coming up. If you can stay with peace and truth, I guarantee this. I mean, it's so beautiful and so wondrous. Things start happening that show you the results that Holy Spirit or Jesus or the loving presence, however you say that, is handling it for you. And when that happens, I start smiling and I go, well, there it is again. I backed off. I didn't interfere. I was just, take Jesus's hand. Just look at the situation with your right mind, stay in the right mind, and back off and let it go. Good golly, it's such a challenge to do this, it seems, because we are taught from the get-go when we're 5 years old, solve the problem, get it done, do this right, and so that's what everyone, you're a success when you can do a whole bunch of great things over and over in the world. That's all ego. But just peace and trust and let it go, and all is well. Thanks for calling on me. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to talk about this because I might go too long, and it looks like I may have done that. So please excuse me on that. But this really works if you do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. That's great stuff. Yeah, and several things. One is you read my mind as to where to go, and that's all. I already picked out that at the end of the workbook as a closing meditation, because I think it fits really nicely. And I just quickly went to the setting the goal, and that word interfere is such a helpful word. And if you break it apart, inter is between, like the interrelationship, interpose, interpret. But if we enter and fear, we put the fear in between us and the Holy Spirit, right? So maybe that's how we can, a working definition of what interference is we put fear in between us instead of in our right minds, in between us and the Holy Spirit. And Sally?
Yeah, I realize more and more, I guess, that the workbook and the text is leading us to the Holy Spirit and away from the ego. And like Stephen says, those last 5 lessons of the workbook, you know, is guiding us to the Holy Spirit in everything we do. And I realize that I do that at times, and I feel more peaceful, which is the goal. But I think I look for solutions in the illusion, and that's where it kind of falls apart, because I can't fix the illusion. You know, the script is what it's going to be, and the illusion is what it's going to be. I can't fix the illusion, and I think that's what I've been wrestling with, is trying to fix the mess. That this isn't doable by, I don't know how to do it, so I just better stop trying. So thank you for everything. You've been all wonderful today.
Oh, likewise. And have you noticed, along what lines what you're just sharing, Sally, that even when you seem like you get all these things done on your to-do list and your little mini bucket list is your whatever you want to call it, you know, an unending task list of the ego's taskmaster mandates as it cracks its little inner whip. When you get a whole bunch of stuff done, you just realize, gee, now I still have a whole bunch more to do. You know, it's like it's never ending. You know, you make the bed one day and then you have to make it the next day. You know, what's up with that?
Yeah, like today I got a internet notice that my one bill had been gone up $300. So I thought, well, now what is that about? So, you know, you got to go work on it and go fix. I managed to get it straightened out, but there's always something, you know, and it depends on who you do it with. You know, if you can get in there and then read the lesson for the day, that usually helps to steer you in the right direction. So there's always something. That's the setup, right?
It is, yeah. And like Stephen says, it's what is it for? You know, what's the purpose? Why am I doing anything that I'm doing? And if it's because I think the world is going to finally bring the peace to me that it has deprived me of for so long, it's like, well, wait a minute. What if the decision for peace is in my mind and has nothing to do with what's happening or not happening in the world? Then the locus of control is no longer out of my mind. I'm no longer out of my mind. and I could see peace instead of this. You know. And something else I was going to say, but anyway, Marissa, you had something.
Yeah, I was just going to tag onto what Sally was saying, that we try and solve a problem where it is not. And that's always helpful for me to remember that. It's kind of jogs my brain. It's like, wait a minute, I'm I'm trying to solve a problem where it doesn't exist. It's not here. And it's a helpful reminder for me, because it's like, wow, it kind of shocks me into realizing, look what I'm doing here. I want this. This is something, whatever it's happening to me, I want. I always get what I want. So to look at that and to realize that you forgive the cause and not the effect, that just is helpful for me to remember. But yeah, it's like every day a new chance. Right?
Exactly. And countless variations of applying that wonderful little bit of wisdom from Ken Wapnick in his brilliant phrase that he wanted to be remembered for, of that the ego is just a maladaptive solution to a non-existent problem, right? So yeah. So I think what you just shared, Marissa, fits that really nicely. It's like if I can just keep noticing, I'm trying to solve a non-existent problem with a maladaptive solution. It's saying the maladaptive solution being the thought system that says, I'm the problem, and I've created this sinful, fearful, guilty identity, and it's the only one I got. And Holy Spirit says, yeah. Get out of my courtroom. Case dismissed. It didn't happen.
Javiera was waving.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks, voice.
Yeah, Tim, are you there? You're there. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I just wanted to share something. Since I have been studying the course with you guys, the word peace is repeated every class, and we want peace, the peace of God. We want peace. But I thought, okay, but what is peace? What does it mean that in terms of practical within the dream? And then I thought, okay, what is peace for me? And I was trying to define peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is what is it for me? Because it's not that. And then I thought, okay, peace for me is having conflict. Is not the absence of conflict, or the absence of fear, or the absence of guilt. Peace is the presence of connection, the presence of being in the right mind. Just that is peace for me. Maybe the course say the same, but I'm just translating in my experience. Because I was really struggling with, okay, I want the peace of God, but what does it mean that? I don't want to repeat something that I cannot apply or understand to feel it, to really feel it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and the course says, the tranquil mind is not a little gift. And then in the section we've just been reading is, this is a practical course. And so, well, what's practical? Well, if this world was a misunderstanding, if it's a misinterpretation, and if it's basically something that we've used to sabotage peace, but it's really not the world that's the problem. It's really the thought system that made up the world that's the problem. And it's not even that. It's the idea that we took that thought system seriously. If I can remember that, then peace is just automatic. I just have to, do those first two steps of forgiveness and just realize, okay, it's not the world, and it's not the thought system that made up the world. It's my belief that that thought system is real, and it has real effects. And once I begin to loosen my white knuckled grip on that whole thought system, it's like, oh, what's left, is the peace of God that's just been waiting there, like the Maytag repairman. And it's not trying to get even, and when we don't listen to it, like the earlier section of this part of the manual describes, it's like, I was one of those previous paragraphs where it's like, the Holy Spirit isn't going to get even with you if you don't listen to him. It just kind of struck me as funny. It's like, no, will he respond with evil? That's what it says. Nah, I don't think so. He's not that kind of persona. But anyway, so let's see. Why don't we, Lisa, would you like to read paragraph 8?
Sure. This is so beautiful. And now in all your doings, be you blessed. God turns to you for help to save the world. Teacher of God, his thanks he offers you, and all the world stands silent in the grace you bring from him. You are the son he loves, and it is given you to be the means through which his voice is heard around the world, to close all things of time, to end the sight of all things visible, and to undo all things that change. Through you is ushered in a world unseen, unheard, yet truly there. Holy are you, and in your light the world reflects your holiness, for you are not alone and friendless. I give thanks for you and join your efforts on behalf of God, knowing they are on my behalf as well, and for all those who walk to God with me. Amen. I don't have anything to add.
The two words that come to mind, which are when I started reviewing this, I had some notes. I was jotting down some things, and I would just say no worries, and I was thinking of what I actually thought of 3 songs that they're favorites is the Beach Boys, Don't Worry Baby, Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry Be Happy, and Stevie Wonder, Don't you worry about a thing. Just three of my favorite songs on the topic of worry. And then I was thinking about how the peace that paragraph epitomizes that you just read, and the quality of ease and relaxation and comfort that permeates our minds when we let those words sink in, when we let the feeling behind the words, the mellows that Ken Wapnick talks about, just that quality, and we just let it in and be okay with it when we're resisting it. Just say, oh, well, I must not be ready for that deep a feeling of peace, and that's okay, because at some point we will want to have that awareness and that understanding and that willingness to allow it to wash through us and resolve all the seeming conflicts in our mind. This is almost like anticlimactic, but I was thinking about, I wanted to get through the section because it's so powerful, but and Tim had a good point the other day, and he said we meander too much and don't really get through the side topic. So I did want to get through that, but I was thinking about some of the other things that kind of tie into. Well, I like rhymes and wordplay, so I was thinking of words that kind of epitomize when we're not allowing that in, and three words that rhyme. One is worry, and then there's fury, and then there's hurry. And so there's actually 4 instances of the word fury in the course. There's let's see, 4 instances of hurry. If you want to look them up, you can use the online edition for that real easily. I won't take the time to do it right now. But then there's also, in terms of worry, there's 15 results, and there was one that really jumped out at me as suitable for reviewing in greater depth, and that is the section From Darkness to Light. And I thought maybe we just spend a few minutes reading a little bit of that. I'm going to read the first paragraph. This is in chapter 11, section 3. And this is From Darkness to Light. And let's see if I can find the page number real quick here, unless somebody's got it handy. It's 11:3, which is, should have that ready, but I can find it quick enough. 11:3 is on. Like
Starts on 198.
198. Yes, we got to it at the same time. Thanks, Lisa. And Marissa, you had a comment?
Bruce, what are the 3 words?
Oh, I just found fury, hurry,
worry,
and worry. I was just this is the way my mind plays with words and rhymes and stuff.
I thought you said furry, and I thought furry.
Well, no, I looked up furry and it didn't have furry, so I thought, well, fury is close enough. Anyway, I like playing with words.
I know you're a master at it, actually.
But this one, I thought the word comfort really epitomized that as for the rest section. It's basically saying, don't worry about a thing. Got you covered. Holy Spirit has your back, and your front, and your side, and your top and your bottom, and every other dimension you can think of. Right? Don't worry about it. Just trust. And I think that it's just kind of a reminder, because the first part of the work, the manuals says, let's trust the Holy Spirit. And in fact, in Ken's commentary in the Journey Through the Manual, he says the two themes in the manual are trusting the Holy Spirit, which this section very nicely concludes, and shared interest. And so the shared interest would be what we're all doing here right now. And every time we join with Holy Spirit in our mind, we're sharing that interest with everyone to let go of the absurd thought system that's, you know, maladaptive, dysfunctional, and just flat out doesn't work, of thinking that separation happened and that we need to fix what's broken in our dream. Well, yeah, sometimes, but we just, I think more importantly, we need to forgive ourselves for being a dreamer of brokenness. and then do what we think we need to do on the level of form, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's see, who hasn't read or would like to read, or just would like to read again? Any takers for the first section from Darkness to Light? And then before we do them, Mercy, you've got a comment or a question?
Just a quick comment on what was just read, sentence, that would be the Manual for Teachers, chapter 29. The last paragraph and
Sure.
sentence 4, to close all things of time, to end the sight of all things visible, and to undo all things that change. Now, the ego will resist that, sometimes fly over that.
You betcha.
Believe me, I see the beauty in this, but I also saw that. It was like, that's me. That's me in the middle there.
Right. And that's so typical of so often when we do allow Holy Spirit in momentarily, and then we quickly gloss over or get distracted or whatever. And that's okay. I mean, I think just even the little tastes of the peace that transcend anything that the world has to offer are enough to motivate us to keep on with our practice of just looking without condemnation at the ego and its resistance propaganda machine.
Sorry, Bruce. Sorry, I have to go.
Oh, okay.
I have to pick up my daughter from ballet.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you for this
Javier.
amazing class.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Lorraine?
Yeah, from that last paragraph we read, the feeling that I got was just the phrase, all is well, and that sense of peace, that all is well, there's nothing wrong, and having those glimpses of that and experiencing that peace when I have that glimpse of nothing's wrong, all is well.
And then the Course invites us to do that more and more often, at whatever pace that we're comfortable with. There's no, so no salesman will call. This is a no pressure, no obligation course. It also does say right at the beginning that it's a required course, but not the form, but the content is required because we never left. So sooner or later, we are all going to voluntarily, of our own free will and accord, want to choose the course's curriculum. It may take a different form. We may go through however many lifetimes it takes, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we all have this joyous, happy destiny of letting go of the dream of duality. And even though we can't even see it for ourselves, let alone other people sometimes, but I think there's a part in our minds that knows that that's really our true identity. And I think those experiences of peace give us that understanding and the motivation. So the little bits of peace become the fuel that encourage us to try it again. I suspended craziness for 5 milliseconds and it felt pretty good. Like maybe I could try making it 10 milliseconds. Lisa?
And it's just so good to know that we are not alone and friendless. I love that line. Yes. I mean, I love the whole feeling of the whole melos of that paragraph, but for some reason, just knowing that we're not alone, we have help. We're not alone. We're not friendless.
We have the appointed friend, which is Jesus, Holy Spirit, right, or kindness teacher, whatever you want to call it. And in that moment, when we're choosing that, everyone becomes our long lost friend. without exception, because then we realize that everyone's either expressing love or they're a call for it. And that's our call to respond with that loving kindness. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, there's so much in that last paragraph. And that'd be a wonderful one to just meditate on. So how about if we just read one paragraph of that. I'll read two. How's that? Of From Darkness to Light, and then we can wrap it up with the end of the workbook. So this is chapter 11, section 3, From Darkness to Light. When you are weary, remember you have hurt yourself. Your comforter will rest you, but you cannot. You do not know how, for if you could, for if you did, you could never have grown weary. Unless you hurt yourself, you could never suffer in any way, for that is not God's will for his son. Pain is not of him, for he knows no attack, and his peace surrounds you silently. God is very quiet, for there is no conflict in him. Conflict is the root of all evil, for being blind, it does not see whom it attacks. Yet it always attacks the Son of God, and the Son of God is you. God's Son is indeed in need of comfort, for he knows not what he does, believing his will is not his own. The kingdom is his, and yet he wanders homeless. At home in God, he is lonely, and amid all his brothers, he is friendless. Would God let this be real when he did not will to be alone himself? And if your will is his, it cannot be true of you, because it is not true of him. So it's almost like we're deaf and blind, and we're intentionally sitting in a corner in this wonderful celebration, this unimaginably great party, and we just have decided that we'd rather just turn our backs and completely shut out any awareness of the joyousness that's present in our minds. And when we stop doing that, when we question, as Javier's example, the brokenness, and say, well, what if that brokenness was something that I dreamt I broke but never was broken? The sin and the guilt and the fear thought system that I thought I pulled off, what if that didn't happen? Then all that's left is comfort. Yeah. Any comments on that couple of paragraphs? If not, I'll wrap it up with the lessons 361 to 365. And I think, again, this is just a nice way of reminding us that at the end of the manual, he's saying, yeah, this course is not an ending, but a beginning, the beginning of implicit trust in the Holy Spirit, and making it, going past the hobbyist stage to a Olympic level mind training at our own pace, in our own time, and welcoming the opportunity to make it our choice rather than just an occasional practice. This holy instant would I give to you. Be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace. And if I need a word to help me, he will give it to me. If I need a thought, that will he also give. And if I need but stillness and a tranquil, open mind, these are the gifts I will receive of him. He is in charge by my request, and he will hear and answer me, because he speaks for God, my Father, and his Holy Son. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bruce.
Great class.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bruce.
Everybody.
That was
Thank you,
great.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Beautiful meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good to see you. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
That's all.